Hey guys, welcome back. Today I want to talk about indexing and collections and how I apply them in my planner. I am doing more of an in-depth series in how I plan and how I apply the bullet journal method in more of a hybrid approach in my Hobonichi Weeks Mega. So if you're curious on why I choose to bullet journal in a Hobonichi Weeks or what my key is, if you're looking at my spreads, I will link my playlist for this series up in the cards if you want to check that out. But today I want to talk about my index, what types of things I index, the collections that make up the things that I typically index, and kind of why I am team indexer. Now, just because I choose to index does not mean that you need to. An index is one of those things where I'd say take it or leave it. If you find that there's value in it, I highly recommend giving it a go. But if it's not for you, don't feel like you have to index to be a bullet journaler. It is something that not everyone finds value in. But today I want to show you mine. I have this year's planner, last year's weeks, and my 2020 cousin here in front of me, so I can show you how I have done this over the years, because like anything within a bullet journal, I find I adapt over time and make small adjustments. So I thought it would be interesting to kind of see my different approach across the last few years. So first of all, let me talk about my definition of an index. So to me, the index is the collection of collections. And I will define collections here in a bit, but you can think of your index as sort of like a table of contents for the content of your planner, or more importantly, a curated table of contents of the important information that you would need to find again, either while you are in your current planner or notebook or for years to come. I typically index for next year me more than current year me. I've been bullet journaling since 2017, and I did not start using the index until 2019, which was my first year in a Hobonichi Cousin. And I find if you're using a Hobonichi planner, I am getting a full year in here. So instead of having to remember page areas via muscle memory for 6 months, I suddenly had to double that time frame, and it turns out I will forget. So I cannot rely on muscle memory as easily when I'm looking at a year's worth of information. And also because I tend to use Hobonichi products, the pages are quite thin. It's the 52 GSM Tomoe River paper, and the pages almost seem to stick together. So unless I have a specific page number or date, like I was using in my cousin that I was looking for, I can really easily skip a couple pages that kind of stick together. So I found indexing to be more beneficial while I'm in a planner, because I'm using a planner that utilizes the very thin Tomoe River paper, versus like a Wake Term, for example, with the 80 GSM paper, I could flip through without pages sticking together as much as they do in this current one. Next thing I want to talk about is what I index, which is going to kind of lead me into the collections portion of this video. I personally choose not to index everything. In my previous journals, so my Hobonichi Cousin, for example, I did index just about everything because I used this Calendex page to denote the information that I indexed on my daily pages. So I felt like I needed to write something down for every single day, because I did use almost every single daily page. But I have found over time that indexing everything is too much information, and it can make this feel a little bit cluttered, and finding what I need takes about twice as long. So moving into my weeks, I've sort of learned over time what is valuable to index, and I've indexed significantly less, but more so I've learned about myself the types of things that I need to find again. So what do I index? I typically will index anything I consider to be reference information. So if I look up the hours for a particular place, I've done research on a particular event, maybe I've written down doctors' information, names, phone numbers, contacts, things like that. Anything like that, I will typically index. Finance notes, I will index as well. If we've done any investing, I make sure that type of stuff gets indexed when we do our tax return, things of that nature. Any kind of list that is going to take me more than a month to accomplish, I will typically index so that I can find it again pretty quickly. and any kind of log for something that's going to take multiple months, or I want to see all that information kind of gathered together. I also index my habit trackers just for ease of use within the current year, but I may not necessarily look them up again in the future. So I mentioned earlier that my index is the collection of collections. So let me talk about the collections a little bit here. So collections is a term that I picked up from the bullet journal method, and to put it simply, it is called a collection because you are collecting like information into one spread or a series of spreads that are threaded together. So for example, I mentioned doctor's notes earlier. If you take the time to write down all of the contact information for the different types of doctors that you have on one page, that would be considered a collection of like information. It would be a medical reference collection, for example. I consider any long-term lists to be a collection as well, because I'm gathering all the things I need pertaining to that topic onto one page. So if I have a project and I put together a master to-do list of everything I need to do to accomplish that project, I would consider that to be a collection. Logs are another thing that I consider to be a collection. So a log, for example, could be, I do a lot of these gaming logs where I will write down the date I play the game and then a summary about what I was doing or any actions that I need to take the next time I pick up the game. I do this because I play really sporadically, and instead of having to restart when I pick this game up 3 months from now, I can look and see what I was doing and pick up where I left off a little bit easier and save myself that time and hassle or feeling like I need to give up on a game. I can go back to it a little bit easier. So to me, that is a log. I don't typically reference my game logs in years to come. It's really more of something that helps me within my current planner, but because I play sporadically, I don't have the muscle memory on where those spreads are unless I have actively tabbed it. So indexing, it helps me more within the current year. Research notes could be a collection. So for example, we are trying to plan a trip to Iceland. So all of my notes that I've taken in researching that project are on a series of pages that I have threaded together. I consider that to be a collection as well. So really what my index is, it's where I gather all the topics and page numbers of important information onto one page. So my index is a collection of my most used or important collections. Hopefully that makes sense. So this year with my index, and let me zoom you in just a little bit. This year with my index, I've done a little bit of a different format. I have written out the title, a colon, and then the page number that that title is on. This is a new format for me. The reason I do this is because I typically am skimming for the topic first. So writing the topic first before the page number helps me find it a little bit faster. And this way, if my collection is going to take more than one page, for example, so those gaming logs, I just started a new one recently. I've got a Stardew Valley log on page 73. I will play that game for way more than one page's worth of information. So when I run out of room on that current page, I will start a new one, and I can add a comma and then where the next page starts to kind of thread those logs together in one place. I currently don't have a very full collection. We're about 4 months into the year. I don't have that much information that I am trying to find currently, but I always give myself room to grow, and as I progress throughout the year, I will add a color code element. So let me show you my 2020 weeks. Last year, 2021, I used my Hobonichi weeks as my bullet journal, and you'll notice that I started with the page number and then what the information is, and I have multiple collections of the same information logged this way, which is why I think I'm doing a little bit smarter this year as compared to last year. But I do have a color coding element here. I have a green color for long-term lists. So these would be more like projects or things I was actively going around back to, referencing and checking tasks off. And then I have reference information. And I went through over time and just kind of highlighted some of this stuff that I know I'm going to want to find years to come. So reference information, for example, I've got our Disney Plus info. That's just what the account number is under, AAA number, so I can find that again. my parents' mailbox number for when I am house sitting and things like that. Long-term lists that I have highlighted here, for example, would be my running target list, the hikes log that we went on in 2021, gift ideas spread, for example, a run tracker, things that I might want to reference in the future. So last year I used about a page and a half for my index. And then the year I was color code crazy, here is my Hobonichi Cousin. And this index works a little bit different, so let me just take a second to chat about it. I did more of a Calendex approach because I was bullet journaling in the daily pages in the back here. So typically I would use this as a daily log, any kind of information that I would need to keep long-term, and then I would daily journal on the right-hand side here. So June 5th, I've got some information on Palm Majesty. We had a new plant at that time. Update is still alive. I can't believe it. And if I go to June 5th here, we see Palm Majesty, and that is highlighted in purple, and I use purple to note that it is reference information. And I did give myself a key here as well. But one of the things that color coding helps me in this year compared to like the current year, so this is a planner from 2 years ago, I will flip back through this all the time to find reference information or any sort of something that I have indexed before. And if I know I'm looking for reference, so I wrote notes on someone's hours, names, etc., how to take care of a plant, I'm just skimming through and looking at the things highlighted in purple, which helps me find things a little bit quicker. I will say this index is very overwhelming compared to my current ones because I indexed every single daily page that I used back here. And sometimes I didn't have information that I would take the time to index now. Maybe it was more of a daily, just notes pages, a quick little scratch, something here or there that I definitely didn't need to reference in 2022, for example. So I've definitely scaled back over time. So this is 2020. 2021s and 2022. So 3 different versions of an index, and I'm slowly finding what is important for me to index versus indexing everything. And I think that's just something that has come to me over time. So how do I keep up with my index? This is a question I got asked over on Instagram. I have learned over time whether I think something is worthy of indexing, and that definition changes year over year. So I try and index real time. So if I set up a tracker and I know I'm gonna need to find that again throughout the year for more than just my current month, I will typically try and write that down immediately after setting up that collection. Now, I don't always do that. I am lazy. So I've got 2 sort of trigger points for me to update my index. So first thing I do is at the end of the month, I will flip through all of my daily logs back here. And if I find any reference information, then I'm like, no, I think I'm gonna wanna find that. Or maybe a full page tracker that maybe I forgot to set up, that would be a point for me to go ahead and add that to my index, for example. And if I don't catch it in that monthly review, the other thing I do is if I'm trying to find information I know I've written down, I search through it, I don't find it in my index, I flip through my pages and then I find it, I will immediately index it at that point, because if I needed it once, I will need it twice. So that is kind of my 2 patterns to try and keep up with my index. I mentioned this a little bit earlier that I'll kind of thread between different pages if a collection takes more than a current page that I've allocated. I typically don't leave a lot of space for collections. So at the beginning of the year, I set up this planner. I can link the video if you want to see my beginning trackers that I considered to be important to set up for the year. But I left room for ones I've historically needed multiple pages for. So for example, my package tracker, I left myself 4 pages because I knew historically I would need that to keep track of everything coming in and coming out like I have in previous years. But for example, my gaming log, I just set up a new one for Stardew Valley here. I've played 5 times since I set this up. I'm almost a third of the way through the page. I know I will go through multiple. I didn't leave like 5 pages for this because I might find a new game that I'm interested in. I typically just reserve a page for a habit tracker or collection, and then when I run out, I will flip to my next current page, set up the next one, and then in my index, I'll add a comma and then the next page number. Hopefully that makes sense. Another thing I got questions about was, do I migrate collections from book to book? And typically no, unless it is reference information I need at my fingertips. And if it's reference information that is really complex, I might try and put it in my phone so that I can look at that up. So maybe like doctor's office contacts, I will add to the contact list in my phone so I don't have to keep writing those over and over. Or those types of things I tend to put on a sticky notes. For example, this is the post office hours, and I'm always looking this up over the last 4 years. So now I just put on a sticky note and I move it from planner to planner at the end of the year. And if the sticky note gets unsticky, then I rewrite it. So hopefully that makes sense. Another question I got were, what type of collections do I reference the most? So let's just look at 2022, for example. My goals milestones is in the back here, and this is where I break down my goals. It's really in pencil, so it's hard to see, but I write down the things, the mini tasks that need to happen for each of my goals using the PowerSheet process. That one I reference on a monthly basis. Gaming logs I reference pretty frequently. I've got one for Pokemon Diamond. I have another one for Stardew Valley. I have another one for Pokemon Legends. That one I actually have tabbed because I am playing it relatively frequently, so I wanted to be able to find it easily. I've got Iceland research. That is a trip we are actively planning, so that is one of my more used ones currently. Taxes checklist, so anytime we do any investing, I write down the date, the account, and the amount for reference. That is one of my most used ones. And on the flip side, some of the indexes that I set up, or indexes rather, sorry, some of the collections I set up at the beginning of the year that I thought were going to be beneficial that I haven't used. The one that comes to mind actually is my inventory spread. This was a collection where I keep track of any backup products. Up here is like toiletries, down here is pantry stuff. I needed this a lot in 2020 to help me keep on track of what I had, what I need to be using, what I need to start being on the lookout for. And I barely use this year. It is not up to date. I have not looked at it probably since mid-January. And sometimes you have collections that you think you need that you just don't use. If you guys want a separate video where I talk just about the habit trackers that I find useful, let me know. I have a really old one on my channel. I'd be happy to do a refresh though if someone wants to see that. But if you guys have any questions related to my index or collections that I didn't cover, let me know down below and I'll try and get back to you down there. But if you've made it this long, thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.